Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. With a lot of talk about the war in Ukraine, now we see the Western focus now shifting back to the Indo Pacific. Joe Biden is supposed to be in this part of the world with his first visit to South Korea, and there is an upcoming Quad in person summit. A lot is in the balance for India. To discuss this, I have with me, as you can see, Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar, who's going to take us through now the focus, which is reshifting from the Central or Eastern Europe back into the Indo Pacific.
Yeah, I think it's time we got back to the Indo Pacific. The Ukraine war is going nowhere. It's degenerating into some kind of hybrid situation, and it's going to be long lasting. Uh, and the action is here. And this is where, a lot of things will get decided. The future. And we have to also understand that the squad is taking place with the fallout of the Ukrainian war coming into the equation, which will affect a lot of other equations also. It has already started having an adverse effect on food and energy prices. So we're going to see a lot of things. Let's start.
As a matter of fact, food and energy is something that we had mentioned as a passing reference, but a very serious passing reference that in our previous conversation that this war may be far away from India, but we are paying more every time we go to the gas station. And now we're going to be
Yeah.
paying more every time we eat food. So it's going to be a little painful. Coming back to Asia Pacific, sir, before I begin the questions, I'd like to inform all the viewers this is going to be a three-part discussion. The first part is where we are going to give you a general preamble of the situation in the Indo Pacific just to get a refresher of what's happening in the region. The second part will be a little more focused towards the Indo Pacific with regards new developments which have taken place, new governments in Philippines, South Korea, and so on and so forth. A little bit about Taiwan and so on and so forth. And post the Quad summit or around when the Quad summit is happening, we'll get together and kind of analyze what's happening in that summit as well. So it'll give you a whole overall picture for us to kind of refocus our attention to this part of the world. So to begin with, another head of state meet, if I may, just put it out there, which was it's getting too fast. The pace of the head of state meets for the Quad, especially, is getting onto a faster pace. Biden is supposed to meet Modi on a bilateral basis as well. How do you analyze this?
See, the fact that the second head of states meet is happening in such a short time span, ever since the Biden administration has come into, office, is itself an indicator of the importance being attached to this region and the Quad. Okay. Let me put a fundamental across. A lot of talk has gone into Quad, a lot of talk has gone into AUKUS.
Hmm.
We have to first realize that AUKUS is a faraway vision. It's only a military vision of making submarines for Australia and all that, but that is a faraway thing. Today, it is a Quad. There's nothing else except the Quad today.
Yeah.
So the Quad is relevant for today. When I say today, the foreseeable next decade, and how Quad behaves is important. So that's the primacy of Quad. And it will be very utopian on our part to think that Quad will only be in non-security issues. It could be non-security issues further down the line, but right now it has to handle security issues for the Indo-Pacific also. That's the first thing. The second is the rate at which this second meeting has come about gives us a very clear indication that things are heating up here. And it's happening in Japan, just on the doorstep of China. It has its own message. Okay. And from the last Quad meeting to now, a lot of things have changed. So there'll be a new alignment being given to the Quad as a whole. The fallout of the Ukrainian war will get factored in this Quad.
Yeah.
It is not only energy and fuel, energy and food issues which will get stuck. It will also have to do with supply chains. It will also have to do with nuclear issues because this has been thrown up, right? It has also to do with some amount of decoupling from China and recoupling with China or others. It also has to do the freeze, or rather the chill which is set in between EU and China. All these will get factored and discussed in this quad. I mean, all these are there. So the quad now has a different context altogether, right? And it brings its own challenges and brings its own opportunities.
Well, absolutely. So, with the geopolitical changes that have taken place within the world, if I may just speculate, the kind of changes that have taken place in the past 2 years used to take place somewhere in 2 decades. So, the kind of pace that the geopolitics is moving, giving us a lot of opportunities to make videos, but it's also a very, very tough this thing to understand.
No, well, things have become quite tough because if you see, there are three issues which are dominating the geopolitical scene: the Ukrainian war, the virus, and the Indo Pacific.
So,
Never did we have all such mega issues put together dominating the world international geopolitics.
so you and I have spoken about China multiple times, and it's no secret that we both have been focused on it, and a lot of our viewers watch this particular show for a sort of a China update. Just to give an update in a gist, the virus is kind of going crazy. Their economy themselves, they're saying about 4.5%. Supply chain seems to be a big issue in China. Energy seems to be a big issue in China. They're trying to fill up their strategic reserves of food and fuel, both. There have been some military belligerence, if I may put it that way, towards Taiwan. Certain satellite photographs of some US ships, Japanese islands, and Taiwanese ports. It's a mixed bag of reactions, emotions, activities within China. With this whole situation, and of course, not to forget the political tish tash which might be happening because of Xi Jinping's future election. What kind of a response do you see from the Chinese, who would be perceived as being in a corner?
Look, to all the problems that you had spoken about in China, I just read something very interesting. That real estate is on the verge of collapse again.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have listed
Right?
out all the problems, sir.
No. Why I'm saying real estate is almost 20% of Chinese GDP. If
Yes.
that goes, Chinese GDP, China will collapse.
Yeah.
And they're in a problem. Today it's not Evergrande and all those new guys are on default. Okay, so that problem is coming back into the center.
True.
Okay, along with other things, Shanghai lockdown, Beijing lockdown, Jilin lockdown, jobs are scarce, or XYZ. It's a mess, right? People say but I don't know whether there'll be any 4.1% growth in GDP overall. Let's see that also. That's also, as of now, sounds so, but we'll see where it goes. But having said that, there's no doubt China is in a corner. Let's not have any doubt. Okay, the EU and China are on. It's been termed as a dialogue of the deaf. So the major markets are gone. With USA, there it is on a very tough tow line.
Yeah.
There's a very clear idea from the West that they'll not give any kind of technology to China, and they'll not give any kind of technology to China which they can give to Russia. So that's out of the equation. So it's going to be very stringent conditions. All those days of the WTO when China could do whatever it wanted is all gone. So China is in a corner. But having said that, China is not a small puppy that you can keep in a corner. It's a big country with a big economy and a major power center. It's a global power. Okay. So it's going to exert itself. Notwithstanding all the issues that it might not be able to take Taiwan and all that, it's going to do what it has to do. Right? After all, just because of Ukraine war, China will not fold up. They'll do something else. So they're trying out new things to get to a new strategy. They know that the old strategy won't work. So they're trying out new strategy. That's what they're doing. In the meanwhile, their militarization has not stopped. So their warships have to go out. They have to do practices. All that they have to do. So that's what we are seeing. Right? They don't want to be seen as cornered. They don't want to be showing themselves as cornered. So they're talking tough. Is it the aggression of a cornered cat? It's a matter of time. We'll know.
We'll know.
Yeah.
That is, I think, the wisest perspective to look at is when you're looking at China, because a lot of people are speculating with regards an offensive sort of a reaction from China, especially when it's in a corner. Some people are saying it can't have a offensive sort of a reaction. I think the best way to analyze this would be to take it as it comes, because China has, of course, got its own priorities as well. So the Quad is an interesting kind of partner association. You've got the US, which is hard bent against Russia, doing whatever it is in Eastern Europe. You've got the Japanese, which are against Russia, but are not against Russia and doing business with them. So they're still buying their oil, their gas, and this and that. You've got the Australians that have sanctioned, but have not really come out so vociferously about, the entire situation. They're going through their own elections, so I guess there's a little bit of a internal rhetoric, if I may put it that way. India on itself has taken a neutral stand, and it's been a tough neutral stand. We've not budged no matter what. Interesting paradigm of 4 different leaders sitting in the same room with different priorities. How does this impact, especially India?
Look, this is an issue which was on the annual 3 months back when the Russia-Ukraine war started.
Yes.
Right, but last month when we had the 2+2 dialogue, all these issues were sorted out. Our attitude towards Russia has nothing to do with our attitude towards the Indo Pacific and China. That has been conveyed in no uncertain terms. Okay. Then the next thing is, which people have realized, that without India, there's no Indo Pacific, there's no Quad. So there's no question that everyone takes a hardline stand. So there is a certain amount of flexibility built into the Quad, which is good, which means that your voice will be heard, and it's not a one-man show. So, well, when you say Japan does business with Russia, Japan does business with China also, but still it's in Quad. So that duality will continue.
Yeah.
No difference.
So do we, sir.
Right. Yeah. The only thing which will be a pinprick in this whole thing is how will this relationship between India and Russia work in tandem with the Quad, or rather in parallel with the Quad. That's something which we have to resolve.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people at the right places have wargamed this, and they know how to tell Russia to stay away. So far, we've told USA and the West to stay away from our relationship with China, Russia. But equally, we are fully capable of telling the Russians to keep away from our equations with the Quad. That would have been conveyed already. That would have been part of the deal for whatever we had supported them. Right? And also, let's face facts. With the way the war is going in Ukraine, that whole talk about that Russia-China axis emerging itself is in question.
Yeah, that's even the Chinese are kind of scared of it now today.
Yeah. So if that is so, what doesn't matter what your equation with Russia is, you're dealing with a different animal out here altogether.
It's not a singular animal. Yes.
It's not. That's also changed. Okay. And you also have to understand you're dealing with a slightly more aggressive animal, right? Especially given the fact that China has now gone step towards Pacific, acquired that Solomon Islands, which will eventually convert to. And I just read that they're also trying another place in the Pacific Island group, the Kiribati Island, as a base, right? So if they're going to have 2 bases there in the Western Pacific, or the Central Pacific, really, Then the reach to USA increases or the mainland Americas increases, which has its own implications. Okay, so I don't think these minor differences will take the Quad nations away from the main focus of China.
It's an irony of similarities, sir. Going closer to each other's border. I think the NATO did whatever it did and reached closer to Russia's border, and we see the Chinese doing a similar tactic of probably an island jumping sort of a campaign within the Pacific.
Yeah, but still, it's not so close. It's 3,000
it's far away. It's far away. There's no question about it. So, lastly, India, whatever said and done, has now realized, and this is something which has gone down to even the public level, that in international relations, one of the biggest things needs to be self-interest or Indian national interest, if I may put it that way. The Pakistanis say it pretty openly. I think it's said more in Pakistan than it's said in India about our own, national interest. What are the things that you think we need to focus on, or India needs to focus on in the Quad, and some of the guarantees and the assurances that India should demand from the rest of the partners?
I don't think we need guarantees. I don't think we need the Quad itself, as of now, can't guarantee anything to anyone because they're not formed.
Sir.
So when there is certain amount of formality which comes into the Quad, then you can start thinking of what you want them to do or not do. So I think the first thing which we need to look at the Quad is to formalize Quad. So far we've been meeting. Action points. There's no review of the issue. There's no permanence of the Quad. There's no headquarters. What is that structure of the Quad? Like NATO's got a headquarter with its own secretary, with its own everything. Will Quad be like that? How will Quad operate? The operating structure of the Quad has to come out. I think if that comes out in this as a result of this, it will be great. Because in the last meeting, the issues to be focused on came out.
Yes.
Right? All the four leaders gave out a joint op-ed in the Washington Post also. I still remember that.
Yes.
Right? But is this the time where probably they'll come out in Asia, Nikkei Asia, and say this is what Quad will be? This is the akar, this is the shape and size of Quad.
The structure, yes, sir.
Yeah, and what will be everyone's role and responsibilities? That's the thing. The second thing which I think we should be clear, if it's a good outcome, it will be what will be the responsibility of each nation in which area? You can't expect Australia to come and fight on the LAC. That's true, right? But if the LAC is being activated, I would expect Australia, USA, and Japan to activate the Pacific theater, so that China is on a two-front situation. Similarly, if China tries something against Taiwan, we should be able to do something on the LAC. That is important. How are they going to operate? And then how are they going to put China looking at two directions? If that they can do, it's a great thing. If they can achieve this understanding, it will be fantastic.
So what you're saying is, sorry, please.
Yeah, tell me. Before I get to the next.
What you're saying is military cooperation rather than a military alliance of some sort. And
no, we don't want military. There's no requirement of military alliance.
It's cooperation.
The idea is to have cooperate with each other. How will they act in an operational situation?
In your own zones of action.
Yeah, in your own zones. You don't have to cross. You don't have to absolutely be. We're not alliance partners. We are partners.
Sir.
Operational partners.
Yeah.
The next thing is we need to have, one great outcome will be intelligence and information sharing. If we could get to a joint forum where all the Quad partners can share intelligence and exchange information and run an information campaign, it will be fantastic.
That's the need today, sir.
And probably that will be the easiest to operationalize. And I think, because all the countries are anyway up to it. We already have a intelligence sharing agreement with the USA. USA has with Australia, Japan as long-term alliance. So if they can put this together, it'll be good. So, so this is the next outcome which should come out of this
Sir,
summit.
sir.
The next thing, which is that while the focus is on the Pacific part of the Indo Pacific, there has to be some focus on the Indo part of the Indo Pacific also.
Mm.
There's a lot is happening here.
Yeah.
Things might not look. Afghanistan is still not
Settled.
a stable
Myanmar.
place. There's energy. Energy is all in Middle East, right? The trade routes. Then you have the, as much as you want, the containment of China is also not allowing it to expand. So there is Pakistan, which is in trouble. Sri Lanka is in trouble. Nepal is in trouble.
Myanmar.
Right? Myanmar is in trouble. How do you go there and reach out to them? Quad needs to have a policy and root out China from these places. This is the opportunity. Right? Sri Lanka, definite chance. Even Pakistan. India might not handle Pakistan. Let USA handle it.
Yeah.
But Quad can think with caveats, right? And it will be a tough ask to handle Pakistan because you all know how slippery Pakistan is. Then, of course, Nepal is also on the verge of economic meltdown, right? Uh, so is Myanmar, we all know. If all this is happening, Bangladesh can't be far behind. So, is there a case for something to come here, some structure of the Quad to override this Indo part of it, and root out Chinese influence? So, right. Then the business of food and fuel scarcity is hitting African nations hard. A lot of them are in trouble, in real pain, and it will only increase. When that happens, many of these are BRI countries. How do you handle that situation? Where does Quad come in to de-Sinicize that area? That's also part of Indo. And that's a part where China gets a lot of raw material from.
Yeah. Rare earths and yeah.
Right? So, if all I've given too much, actually, even if 50% of this gets formalized in this summit, it will be great because I've only said mostly from the Indian perspective. There is a Pacific perspective. How does Quad act or react or with ASEAN countries? How will Quad handle the nuclearization debate in South Korea and Japan? All these are part of the outcomes which will come out. So, and there's a lot of talk in Japan today about taking a tough stand against China, right? So, all these issues will have to find a place so that there is something more substantial than what has been. So far, we have spoken. So, we need to convert that into action. As simple as that.
Absolutely. I think you've charted out a small, sort of a line of thought for us to kind of think about, and I'm sure a lot of these and more would be there in the planners and the people in the right places in their minds. Of course, they've got a lot more information to kind of make these decisions. But the 4-5 things that you've mentioned tell us a whole lot of opportunities which are available for the Quad to kind of create a name for itself, and especially in the Indian subcontinent where we see you don't need to throw a stone far away to find a country in economic crisis. And if the world has to, and the economic forums have to be believed, this economic crisis is going to only multifold in Africa and a lot of other countries. Sir?
Yeah, and it's not only that. You see, it's only Quad which can come and help people out. We know by now, it is very well established that we are going to have a problem of resources, we're going to have a problem of food, we're going to have a problem of energy globally. Which is that platform which can help people out? It's Quad. After all, the importance of Quad also has to be seen that South Korea wants to join Quad now,
Yeah. Mm.
right? Then France will start acting, though France has got, mind you, France has got about 1 million plus of its inhabitants in islands in the Pacific. They have their own
Interests.
strategy,
Hmm.
the Indo Pacific strategy, but still they'll prefer to have the Quad behind them. They can't do it alone. What about the European nations? European nations, each of the European nations had their own strategy before this Ukraine war. But with the Ukraine war happening, they can't focus here. They will have to depend on the Quad. They might at best come to terms with Quad and act along with Quad. But can they act in the Indo Pacific like they used to do before? No, they have to, right? And they're actively looking at decoupling from China and recoupling with any other place, and preferably India. Right? If all this has to happen, which is the platform? Definitely can't go to UN or NATO. It has to be the Quad. So it's not only security; there are a lot of non-security issues also.
Yeah.
See, the importance of Quad to this region today is manifold. One, are the non-traditional issues, non-security issues, which have come up as a result of the Ukrainian war, global economy and things like that. So that is one part of the story. The second part of the story is to contain China's belligerence.
True.
Okay, so that has to be there. So all these put together make this summit very important. I mean, Quad has to have a new direction from my side. And the way I look at it, it's no more business as usual what it was, say, 6 months back.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that we see is that the Chinese have actually taken it pretty seriously. It's not that they're brushing it down just like any other bilateral or trilateral or quadrilateral meeting. The statements that are coming out from there are pretty interesting.
The Chinese are absolutely worried.
Yeah.
They are most worried about India. So far, they thought that they could hedge India away from the, divert India away from the Quad. But after Wang Yi's visit, when he was told, sorry, we have nothing to do with you, or to words to that effect, they are worried. They are now very clear that we are fully aligned with the Quad. And if we are aligned with the Quad, it shifts the balance. And with Russia stuck there, they are alone. There's no one. Who's their allies? Pakistan, North Korea, Iran.
North Korea, who's dealing
Okay.
with his own COVID crisis.
And that too, they are at their weakest. Like we said earlier, the COVID is rampant.
Yeah.
Political uncertainty is there. Their economy is not doing well. Plus XYZ, whatever. That is a different story. We made into China. But they have a problem.
Interesting, sir. I think this is a good prelude to our discussion of an ongoing process or ongoing build-up in the Indo-Pacific and a shift of focus. If there are any big updates that come across in Eastern Europe, we'll be sure to address them. But till then, let's kind of see what's going to happen with the upcoming Quad summit with the heads of state of all four governments. Of course, the Australians are still yet to be decided who it is, but I'm sure the country's focus will remain the same. Sir, till we discuss the larger implications and issues which are rising in the Indo-Pacific, I'd like to, take some time and Jai Hind, and let's catch up for the part 2 of this interesting series on the Quad and the refocus onto Indo-Pacific. Thank you, sir, and Jai Hind.
Thanks a lot.